Hey, algebra students, welcome to today's lesson. It's from Unit A1.4, Lesson 3. So the title in Desmos is called Toy Factory. The main topic, though, is function notation and equations. If you think back to the lesson that we learned about yesterday, we were talking about Desmino's Pizza and the fact that they make small, medium, and large pizzas. For the large pizza, the cash register uses this function. M of x equals 15.5 plus 1.5x. So even though it's written as 15.5, this represents $15.50, and then 1.5 is $1.50. That's for the extra toppings, okay? And they use that function to determine the price of a medium pizza with x toppings. Use the equation to calculate the value of each function notation expression. So let's review how we say the first expression. So for m of 3, right, it's m of 3, not m times 3. So again, this is a medium pizza, and what's in the parentheses is the x toppings, the amount of toppings. So here the toppings is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and take my function m of x, except instead of all the x's, I'm going to replace them with the toppings that I've been given, which in this case is 3. So everywhere that you see the x's, right? So m of 3 is what we're going to find first. Anywhere you see the x's, we're going to replace the x with a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 3 here and a 3 here. So m of 3 is what we're trying to find, okay? So essentially, we're trying to simplify this part. So m of 3 equals whatever this is going to be. So go ahead and type that into your calculator or figure it out. 1550 plus 1.5 times 3. Okay, so you should get a total of 20. So this is the price of a medium pizza with 3 toppings. So again, we're using the function. It says use the equation to calculate the value of each function notation expression. Function notation was our vocab yesterday. So as I read this next one, it's m of 0. So I'm going to go ahead and replace all the x's in the function with 0 and find the answer. So all the x's become zeros. And essentially, you're trying to just find out the answer to this, right? 15, so $15.50 plus $1.50 times 0. Go ahead and do that, and you put that in your calculator if need be, or you can do it in your head. Remember, when you multiply something by 0, it's just 0. So you should get 1550. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and find the value of m of 1 and m of 4 and push play when you're ready. So if you remember, the cash register was able to calculate these super quickly because it already had the equation programmed in. So to find m of 1, right, it would have already had the price of the medium pizza in there. So all you had to, the calculator, I don't know if you guys remember, all you had to push was the medium button, right, for the medium pizza, and then the input, you had to type in the amount of toppings. Okay, so this should be $17, right? And what you guys get when you did the 4, m of 4. Did you get 21.5? Okay, so I like to write money with 2 numbers behind the decimal. So even though you got maybe 21.5 on your calculator, that's $21.50. So that's a quick review of what we did yesterday using functions, okay, equations. We're going to kind of get into it a little bit more now. All right, go ahead and read this next scenario about a toy factory and the fire trucks that it makes. So this toy factory makes trucks that come in all different sizes. Okay. The distance between the truck's wheels. Okay. So the distance between the truck's wheels, essentially, right? The distance between the truck's wheels is half of the truck. So the distance between the two wheels is going to be the same distance as half of the truck. Let me try to use a different color here. So the half of the truck is the distance between the wheels. Okay, those match up. Okay, so the distance between the wheels is half the length of the truck. So if you notice, they've given us the length of the truck and they want to know what the distance is between the wheels. Okay, well, again, don't forget what they said. The distance between the truck's wheels is half the length of the truck. Half the length of the truck. So if they give you the truck length, we're going to divide it by 2. We're going to cut it in half to find how far apart the wheels are. If the truck is 6 inches long, divide that by 2. That should give you that the wheel distance is 3 inches apart. Okay, well, 3 is not perfectly divisible by 2, right? But if you get a decimal, that's okay. So half of 3 is 1.5. So these are all in inches. Write an equation for the function above. Let d of x represent the wheel distance, the distance between the wheels for a truck, that is x inches long. So if you look back into the table, they're asking you to use d of x for the wheel distance. So this is d of x, and then the truck length is x inches long, so that's your x. Because we want to write an equation, we have to write we have to think about like the general pattern of what was happening to the numbers. So the wheel distance depends on, right, how long the truck length is. So d of x equals, so again, the distance between the wheels. Well, what did we write? We wrote that it is half the length of the truck. So the truck length is represented by x, and we want half of that. So you're going to write it as 1/2 x. Okay, so pause for a second and think about what we just did. In our table, they gave us the truck, how long the truck was, and then half of that was how far apart the wheels were. Right? You notice we always divide it by 2. You could write it like that, or you could write it as d of x equals x, the length of the truck, and divided by 2. Okay, both of those are acceptable answers. You can multiply by half or you can divide by 2. All right, go ahead and read the next story about the factory. All right, so let's talk about what information was given to us about these toy cats. So if you notice, these toy cats are on a base, right? Okay, so they're saying that the height of the cat's eyes, h of x, and the little parentheses got cut off here. So the height of the cat's eyes, h of x, depends on how wide the width of the base. So remember, this is the base. So it depends on the base. But we don't know, is the height twice as big, 3 times as big? We don't know. Okay. But they've given us a couple of data values to help us figure it out in the table. Okay. So I want everyone to think, okay, well, x is the width of the base. So feel free to like underline, circle. So the height of the eyes is h of x, and the width of the base is x. So our input values are the width of the base. So our input values are the x values. Our output values, so input values are x values, that's the width of the base. Our output values are the height, how high the eyes are, the height of the eyes. Okay, that's h of x. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video here and ask yourself, how are the input values related to the output values? You got to try to find a pattern here. So in the previous problem, we realized and they told us that the length was always twice as big as the distance between the wheels. In other words, the wheel distance is half of the truck length. So here you got to ask yourself, well, how are the input and output values related? And you're going to write an equation for the height of the cat's eyes. So how are they getting these answers on the right side column? How are they getting the output values based on the input values on the left? Okay, so pause the video. I want you guys to work on this for a couple minutes. Think about it. How are they related? How did the 3 become a 9, the 5 become a 13, etc.? Okay, when you're ready, you can push play. Okay, so originally for the input of 3 and the output of 9, I thought, okay, well, maybe they just multiplied by 3. But then 5 times 3 is 15 and not 13. So, okay, so then I had to kind of start from scratch. Then I was like, okay, well, maybe they're like multiplying by the 3 by something and then either adding or subtracting to get the 9. So I did. Okay, what about like, so it wasn't 3 times 3. What about like 3 times 2? So 3 times 2 is 6. And then to get to the 9, I would have to add 3. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the pattern, right? Multiply by 2 and add 3. So I tried the next one. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 3 is 13. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. So then I did 7.5 times 2 plus 3. And I said, oh, does it give me 18? Yes. Okay. And then 10 times 2 is 20 plus 3 is 23. So I started noticing that all of these were being multiplied by 2 and then being added with 3. Multiplied by 2, added with 3. And again, you just kind of have to try a lot of different combinations until you find what the pattern is. Okay, there was one lesson where the pattern was multiply by 2 and add 1. And some of you guys figured it out. Okay, so take your time. Some of you might find the pattern in 2 minutes, some of you might take 5 minutes, but it's important to make sure that you're like looking at how the output is related to the input. So if I write the equation for the function h of x, so the output came from doubling our input. So our input is the x, doubling our input times 2, 2 times x, and then adding 3. And that's our equation. So no matter what now, any x value that you input, you multiply it, right, by 2, add 3, and it'll give you your output. Okay, go ahead and read this last example. Underline, circle anything that you think is important. Okay, so if you notice, they gave us a function b of x for the bow tie equals 4x. So b of x is the width of the bow tie. So that's how wide the bow tie is. That's b of x. And x is the width of the base. So this guy's going to be the width of the base. And then the width of the bow is b of x. They're saying find the value of b of 9. Okay, well, I'm going to take the function and I'm going to replace all the x's with a 9. So that's my input value of 9. B of 9 is going to equal 4 times 9. Well, 4 times 9 is 36. So that means that B of 9 equals 36. What does that mean? So think back to what they told us about what the B of X and X represent? So we typed in an X value of 9. That was our input, right? What does the 9 mean? What does the 36? Okay, so think back to what they said over here. X is the width of the base. So if a toy, whoopsies, has a base of 9 inches, what can we say about it? The bow tie will be 36 inches because according to the function up here, right, the bow tie is going to be 4 times X, where X is the width of the base. All right, guys, as always, anytime we learn something new, if you're confused or want extra help, feel free to ask for help. All right, guys, have a great day. See you next time.